On October 6, 2025, at the quiet stretch of Route 14 in Harvard, Illinois, the road is dark, nearly empty, the kind of silence that feels heavy, like the air itself is holding its breath. But just after midnight, something strange catches a driver's eye. A car is parked awkwardly on the northbound lane, hazard lights blinking. No movement, no sound, just two faint figures inside. Moments later, an officer arrives, thinking someone might need help. He walks toward the vehicle, shining his flashlight through the window. What he sees freezes him in place. Inside the car sit Rachel and Brandon Dumovich, a young, newly married couple from Wisconsin. They look peaceful at first glance, but they're not breathing. Both have been shot in the head. A gun rests inside the vehicle. That's how the Dumovich case began, a discovery so shocking it turned an ordinary night into one of the most disturbing mysteries Illinois has seen this year. If you're just hearing about this case, stay with us till the end, because what police found next will make you question everything. Rachel and Brandon have been married for just a few months. Their friends described them as inseparable, always laughing, always holding hands. Brandon, 30, worked in construction. Rachel, 29, was known for her bright smile and deep love for animals. Together, they were planning their future, a home, a family, a simple life. So when word spread that both had been found dead in their car, people refused to believe it. Not them. Not Rachel and Brandon. At first, police treated it as a possible double homicide, but the scene raised questions. The car doors were locked. There was no sign of struggle. The gun was found inside, and that detail alone changed everything. Soon, whispers started. Could this have been a murder-suicide? Authorities stayed quiet. They said they were investigating all possibilities, but silence only fueled speculation. Online, people debated theories. Some said Brandon must have snapped. Others believed the couple had been targeted. A few even suggested something darker, that it wasn't either of them who pulled the trigger. But to understand what might have happened that night, we have to go back to the beginning. Rachel and Brandon met in 2020. She was volunteering at a community event when they first crossed paths. He was there helping a friend set up sound equipment. Rachel joked that Brandon looked lost. He laughed and said, "Maybe I was waiting for you to find me." That simple line turned into a conversation. That conversation turned into friendship, and friendship became something deeper. By 2023, they were engaged. It wasn't a flashy engagement. No expensive ring, no fancy dinner, just a quiet moment at sunset by a lake they both loved. Brandon asked, Rachel cried, and they promised to spend their lives together. Everyone who knew them described their love as genuine, almost childlike in its innocence. So when tragedy struck, no one could imagine how things could have gone so wrong. Investigators worked around the clock. The McHenry County Coroner's Office performed autopsies. The results were grim. Both victims had been shot in the head. The manner of death? Still undetermined. That one word, undetermined, sent chills through everyone following the case. Was it suicide? Was it murder? Or something in between? Something no one had yet considered? Forensic teams searched the car. They found no signs of forced entry. Nothing was stolen. The engine was still running when police arrived. It looked like the couple had simply stopped in the middle of the road and died. Police collected fingerprints, tested the gun, and sent samples for toxicology. But those results take time. In the meantime, rumors grew. Some locals claimed they had heard a loud pop early that night, but thought it was fireworks. Others swore they saw another car drive off minutes before the police arrived. None of those reports were confirmed. Still, the case felt too clean, too precise. Friends close to the couple told investigators that Rachel had seemed distant lately, distracted. She'd been texting less, avoiding calls. Brandon, on the other hand, had been posting photos of them smiling, sharing wedding memories. Nothing suggested trouble. But as investigators know, social media rarely tells the full story. When police spoke with family members, they learned the couple had been on a short trip before their deaths. They had attended a family gathering in Wisconsin and were returning home when everything happened. That meant whatever went wrong on the road back. Now imagine this. It's after midnight. You're driving home with the person you love most. Maybe you're tired. Maybe you argue. Maybe something happens that no one can take back. Or maybe someone was waiting for you on that dark stretch of highway. No one knows. Not yet. As the investigation deepened, people demanded answers. The Harvard Police Department teamed up with the McHenry County Major Investigative Assistance Team. But the more they searched, the fewer clues they found. And so, the Dumovich case entered a strange place, a mystery with 2 victims, 1 gun, and 0 explanations. Yet, as the coroner delayed releasing the official manner of death, one chilling question remained. If this was a murder-suicide, who pulled the trigger first? The couple's families released a joint statement asking for privacy and patience. They described Rachel and Brandon as beautiful souls whose love lit up every room. They also pleaded with the public not to jump to conclusions. Still, behind closed doors, some family members began to worry that police might never tell the full story. The small town of Harvard became a place of tension and fear. People locked their doors earlier. Strangers avoided eye contact at gas stations. Everyone wanted to believe it was an isolated tragedy, that it wouldn't happen again. But then came new whispers that would soon push the case into darker territory. Someone who lived near Route 14 claimed they'd seen another vehicle stop behind the Dumovich car that night, a dark SUV. Others said they'd seen 2 figures standing near the passenger side before speeding away. None of it could be proven, but the rumor alone added a terrifying new possibility. What if the Dumovichs weren't alone that night? As the first week passed, local news outlets covered the story nonstop. Photos of the smiling newlyweds appeared on every screen, a happy couple frozen in time. Reporters called it a tragedy that makes no sense. And indeed it didn't. Rachel and Brandon's story wasn't over yet. The next phase of the investigation would reveal new evidence, and a chilling discovery that changed how police saw everything. If you're following this story, don't stop here. We'll uncover what investigators found inside that car, details that might explain why 2 newlyweds never made it home that night. And if you haven't yet, make sure you stay with us till the end, because the Dumovich case is only just beginning. The Dumovich case didn't just shake a small Illinois town. It rippled across 2 states, stirring confusion, fear, and heartbreak. In the days after October 6, 2025, investigators worked quietly behind the scenes, combing through every inch of the scene. The vehicle, a silver sedan belonging to the couple, was taken into evidence. Every fingerprint, every trace of gunpowder, every mark mattered. To the untrained eye, it was just a car with 2 victims. But to detectives, it was a puzzle, and every piece might tell the story of what really happened. At first glance, the car looked ordinary. No shattered glass. No blood spatter on the windows. Both Rachel and Brandon were seated upright. Rachel in the driver's seat, Brandon in the passenger seat. The gun lay on the center console, between them, 1 shot each. No struggle, no signs of defensive wounds. The detail that stood out most was the calmness of the scene. It didn't look like chaos. It looked like stillness, as if the world had simply stopped. Investigators dusted for prints and examined the gun. It was registered. No missing serial numbers. No sign of an intruder's presence. Early forensic tests showed that only Brandon and Rachel's fingerprints were found on the firearm. That discovery shifted the case dramatically. Could Brandon have shot Rachel, then turned the gun on himself? Or was it possible that Rachel had done the unthinkable? The police refused to jump to conclusions. They sent the gun to a state lab for a full ballistic test. They collected gunshot residue samples from both victims' hands. Tests that could show who had fired the weapon, but those results would take weeks. Meanwhile, the public wasn't patient. People wanted answers. News outlets reported it as a possible murder-suicide, but friends of the couple were furious at that label. They insisted it wasn't like them. They were in love, planning to start a family. Rachel had just talked about getting a puppy. Brandon had told a co-worker he was saving up for a house. If life seemed so bright, how could it end in a dark car on a lonely highway? Friends flooded social media with memories, photos, and videos. One video showed Rachel laughing as Brandon tried to dance at their wedding. Another clip, taken just 2 weeks before their deaths, showed them hiking together. They looked happy, genuinely happy. But investigators knew better than to trust smiles and pictures. Behind every perfect image can lie tension, secrets, and pain that no one else sees. Detectives started piecing together a timeline of their final hours. On the day of October 5th, the couple had attended a family event in Wisconsin. They stayed late, ate dinner, and left around 10:30 p.m. to drive home. Harvard, Illinois, was just under an hour away. By 12:30 a.m., they should have been home. Instead, at 12:47 a.m., their car was discovered, parked in the middle of the road with the engine still running. That gap, the missing hour, became the focus of the investigation. Where were they during that time? Did they stop somewhere? Did someone meet them on the road? A gas station near the Wisconsin-Illinois border provided a partial clue. Security footage showed their car pulling in around 11:45 p.m. Rachel got out briefly, bought snacks, and went back to the car. Nothing unusual. No one followed them. No argument on camera. And yet, 45 minutes later, both were dead. Detectives went through phone records. Both phones stopped transmitting data around midnight. No calls, no texts, no GPS activity. Almost like they'd driven into silence. When police examined inside of the car again, they noticed something subtle. Rachel's seat was slightly reclined, and her phone was found face down on the passenger floor. Brandon's wallet was in his pocket, untouched. But the detail that truly made investigators pause was a faint residue of gunpowder on both of their hands. Gunshot residue tests are delicate. It's possible for both people in a confined space to have trace particles if a shot was fired. But it also meant one chilling thing. Either could have been the shooter. Meanwhile, the community tried to make sense of it all. Local pastors held vigils. Candles flickered along Route 14. People prayed for answers. Parents held their children closer. Every story, every rumor, every theory circled back to one question. Who fired the gun first? And just when the investigation seemed to slow, something new surfaced. Detectives retrieved the car's electronic control data, the vehicle's black box. It can record speed, braking, seatbelt use, and even door openings. The results were shocking. According to the data, the car had slowed to a stop around 12:40 a.m. Hazard lights turned on manually. Both front seatbelts were fastened until the moment of the shots. The engine stayed on. There was no sudden acceleration, no crash, no panic braking. Whatever happened, it wasn't a surprise attack. It was deliberate, controlled. That finding deepened the mystery. If it was a spontaneous argument, wouldn't there be signs of struggle? If it was premeditated, why choose the middle of the road? Some began to think the answer wasn't in the evidence. It was in the psychology. In the following days, reporters learned that Brandon had recently applied for a new job in another city. It would have required moving. Rachel wasn't ready to leave her family behind. Some friends recalled tension about that topic. Small disagreements that might have grown into something heavier. But would a disagreement about moving really end like this? Detectives didn't think so. They started considering whether someone else could have been involved. Someone close enough to know their route, their habits, their car. A few locals reported seeing a dark vehicle parked near Route 14 earlier that night, possibly an SUV. Police reviewed nearby surveillance cameras, but footage was limited. Still, it was enough to suggest another car may have been there minutes before officers arrived. That single clue cracked open a new theory. What if the Dumovichs had pulled over to meet someone? What if they trusted that person? Enough to stop, enough to let their guard down. And what if that trust was betrayed? As the second week of investigation unfolded, authorities confirmed one more critical detail. The gun found inside the car belonged to Brandon. He had purchased it legally for protection nearly a year earlier. That revelation reignited the murder-suicide speculation. But the families pushed back again. Rachel's sister spoke publicly for the first time, saying Brandon loved her. He would never hurt her. Brandon's brother echoed the same. They were happy, he said. Something else happened out there. Even police weren't ruling anything out. They released a statement urging the public to avoid speculation, while quietly continuing to gather ballistic results and toxicology reports. But as every day passed, the unanswered questions only grew louder. Why was the gun between them? Why were their phones off? And if it was a double suicide, why shoot each other in the head? The answers were still out of reach. Yet, behind the walls of the police station, investigators were beginning to piece together fragments. Small clues that, when connected, pointed toward a disturbing new possibility. And when the first lab results came back, they revealed something no one expected. The Dumovich case was about to take its first major turn. And if you're just joining this story, don't stop here. Make sure you stay till the very end. Because the truth about Rachel and Brandon's final moments may be far darker than anyone imagined. When the lab reports finally arrived, investigators in McHenry County gathered around the results like soldiers waiting for orders. Everyone knew this moment could change everything. For nearly 2 weeks, the Dumovich case had been a storm of questions with no answers. Was it murder? Suicide? Something else entirely? Now, at last, the evidence was ready to speak. The first major report came from the Illinois State Police Crime Lab, the ballistic analysis. Technicians confirmed that the gun found in the Dumovich's vehicle had been fired twice, and both shell casings matched that single weapon. No other firearm was involved. That ruled out an outside shooter, or so it seemed. Next came the gunshot residue results. Scientists tested swabs from both Rachel and Brandon's hands. The findings were complicated. Particles consistent with gunshot residue were found on both victims. But there was a difference. Brandon's sample showed a higher concentration of lead, barium, and antimony, the chemical trio that forms when a weapon is discharged. Rachel's sample contained only trace amounts. To the investigators, that detail whispered a painful story. Brandon was most likely the shooter. Still, they couldn't rush to label it a murder-suicide. Not yet. There were inconsistencies that refused to fade. The gun's position, lying neatly between the two seats, didn't match a typical suicide scene. The angle of Rachel's wound suggested she was shot from close range. Yes, but not from the position Brandon was found in. And Brandon's own wound, it was at a strange trajectory, one that didn't line up naturally with a self-inflicted shot from where he sat. Something didn't add up. Investigators considered a new theory, that someone else could have staged the scene to look like a murder-suicide. But to do that, they would have needed access to the couple, the car, and the weapon. And that meant the killer, if there was one, had to be someone close. Detectives turned their attention to the Dumovich's phones, hoping they might reveal a clue about that final hour. When data experts reconstructed deleted files, they found something chilling. A draft message on Rachel's phone that had never been sent. It read, "We just need to get through this drive. Please don't do anything stupid." No recipient was listed, no timestamp beyond the date. But that one line shattered the idea of an easy explanation. Who was she talking to? What did she mean by get through this drive? And what could Brandon have been planning? As those questions echoed through the department, a second report arrived. Toxicology results. Rachel's blood showed traces of mild sedatives, the kind found in some prescription anxiety medications. Brandon's didn't. That detail raised new suspicions. Had Rachel been under medication that night, or had she been drugged? Investigators contacted her doctor, who confirmed she'd been prescribed a low-dose anti-anxiety medication months earlier. Still, the levels in her system were slightly above normal, enough to make her drowsy or confused. Could she have been too disoriented to react to danger? Detectives returned to the vehicle for another sweep, this time searching for any fingerprints that didn't belong to the couple. The first search had been clean, but under new lighting and more advanced scans, technicians found a partial print on the exterior passenger side door handle. It didn't match Rachel. It didn't match Brandon. Forensic experts entered it into the national database. No match came back. That single smudge reignited everything. Suddenly, investigators couldn't rule out the possibility of an outside presence. Someone who might have approached the car in the dark, fired the shots, and left without a trace. As word leaked that new evidence had been found, the case took over local news again. Reporters stood outside the police station. Headlines read, "Dumovich investigation reopened with new leads." The community began to hope for answers. But hope soon turned into shock when police shared the preliminary autopsy timeline. According to the coroner, the estimated time of death was 12:41 a.m. The first 911 call reporting the car was at 12:47 a.m., barely 6 minutes later. 6 minutes. That's all it took for two lives to end and for their story to become a mystery. And yet, those 6 minutes still weren't fully explained. No one had seen the actual shooting. No dash cam footage. No witnesses close enough to confirm anything. Just that eerie car, stopped in the middle of the road with its hazard lights flashing like a silent distress signal. By mid-October, investigators began cross-referencing nearby surveillance systems, security cameras from businesses along Route 14. That's when they caught something unusual. At 12:39 a.m., 2 minutes before the presumed time of death, a dark SUV appeared on a traffic camera half a mile away, traveling slowly behind the Dumovich's car. The vehicle's headlights dimmed briefly, then vanished from view. Minutes later, the Dumovichs were found dead. Police couldn't make out the license plate. The footage was grainy, almost useless, but it confirmed one thing. Someone else was there. If it was coincidence, it was the worst time coincidence imaginable. If not, then someone knew exactly when to strike. The FBI was consulted to assist with enhancing the footage. In the meantime, detectives interviewed everyone who might have known the couple's plans that night. Rachel's co-worker mentioned she'd been anxious lately. She said Rachel once confided, "Brandon's been different lately, quieter," but she never explained more. Brandon's friends painted a different picture, that he'd been upbeat, focused, and proud of his marriage. He loved that girl, one said. He wasn't capable of hurting her. Two stories. One night, no answers. But behind every silence, there's a truth waiting to surface. Detectives focus again on the black SUV. Who owned it? Where did it go after disappearing from a camera's view? A witness came forward a few days later, a truck driver passing through Route 14 that night. He claimed he saw a dark vehicle speed past him moments before he noticed flashing hazards up ahead. He didn't stop because he thought it was a police car assisting a breakdown. The detail fit perfectly within the missing minutes. Now, police had a vehicle, a timeline, and two victims who didn't fit the story of a simple murder-suicide. As more evidence trickled in, forensic analysts noticed another strange detail. No gunpowder burned on Brandon's hands. Only residue. That suggested the gun had been fired near him, not by him. That single fact flipped the investigation on its head. If Brandon didn't fire the weapon, who did? Was Rachel the shooter after all, disoriented, maybe scared? Or had someone else been close enough to fire, then placed the gun between them to make it look like a double tragedy? Police refused to reveal their working theory. They knew the truth was close, but the evidence was still fragile. The Dumovich case was no longer a quiet domestic tragedy. It was beginning to look like something calculated and possibly staged. And when investigators dug into Brandon's phone history, what they found next would pull the case into a whole new direction, one that hinted at betrayal, secret messages, and someone who might have wanted both newlyweds dead. If you haven't yet followed this story, now's the time, because the next part might change everything you thought you knew about Rachel and Brandon's final moments. The Dumovich case was supposed to be over. A quiet file, sealed with tragic label, possible murder-suicide. But as investigators would soon learn, the truth was hiding in plain sight, locked within the glowing screens of two cell phones. Rachel and Brandon's phones had gone dark the night they died. No calls, no texts, nothing after 12 a.m. But when digital forensics experts dug deeper, they discovered something buried, a string of deleted messages exchanged in the days before their deaths. The messages painted a fragile picture of their marriage. Brandon's text showed frustration. He felt distant from Rachel, worried she'd been keeping things from him. Rachel's messages told another story. She felt unsafe, like Brandon was angry too often and refused to talk. And then one message stopped the entire investigation cold. Sent from Rachel's phone at 11:19 p.m. on the night they died, it read, "If anything happens tonight, tell him to look at him." But it was never delivered. No one knows why. The message sat in her outbox, unsent, unfinished, almost like a final warning. The timestamp placed it roughly 20 minutes before they stopped at that gas station. Investigators cross-checked Brandon's messages from the same time. His last text was sent to a friend at 11:20 p.m. "We're talking things out. It's okay." Two messages, opposite tones, sent within a minute of each other. Whatever talking things out meant, it wasn't okay. The digital team also recovered a series of notes from Brandon's phone. One note, created days earlier, said simply, "I can't fix this. She won't listen." Another read, "If we can't move forward, maybe it's better to end it all." That note became the breaking point for detectives. If Brandon had been contemplating suicide, and if Rachel sensed danger, then the tragedy might have been a desperate act born out of fear and emotion. But if that was true, why were there still inconsistencies in the gun's placement and the partial fingerprint on the car door? The print remained unmatched. No identity, no confirmation, just that haunting mark. Proof that someone else had touched the car before police arrived. Detectives retraced the couple's route again, minute by minute. They discovered that between the gas station and Route 14, the Dumovich's car had briefly slowed near a small service road, an area with no streetlights and no cameras. Tire marks nearby suggested they might have pulled over there before moving again. Who were they meeting? Through subpoena data, police tracked phone signals pinging off the same tower near Route 14 that night. Only 3 devices were active in that window: Rachel's, Brandon's, and one unregistered prepaid phone. That third signal appeared at 12:38 a.m., 3 minutes before the time of death, and disappeared seconds later. Whoever it was, they were close, very close. The unregistered number led nowhere. No carrier name, no ID, a burner phone. Someone careful. Someone who didn't want to be found. Detectives started to suspect that maybe the Dumovichs hadn't stopped voluntarily. Maybe they'd been followed. They re-examined that dark SUV from the camera footage. Enhanced images revealed a faint sticker on the rear windshield, a local construction company logo. Investigators contacted the company and traced the vehicle to a man named Ethan Ward, a co-worker of Brandon's. When police questioned him, Ethan admitted he'd been near Route 14 that night, but claimed it was coincidence. He was driving home late from a different job site. His story wavered, his tone uneasy. He also admitted something else. Brandon had recently accused him of having an inappropriate friendship with Rachel. That revelation hit like a thunderclap. Could jealousy, anger, and betrayal have pushed Brandon over the edge? Or could Ethan have followed them, confronted them, and left before anyone arrived? Investigators asked to test Ethan's hands and clothes for residue, but by then it was too late. Days had passed. No residue remained. Still, his SUV was impounded. Forensic teams found faint traces of blood in the trunk, so faint they couldn't confirm whose it was. It could have been old, unrelated, or meaningless, or it could have been the one missing link. But just as police prepared to press further, the coroner's final report came in. The official manner of death for both Rachel and Brandon Dumovich was ruled homicide, not suicide, not accident. Homicide. The report cited inconsistencies in the gun's position, wound trajectories, and the lack of self-inflicted residue. It was a confirmation everyone had been waiting for, and the beginning of a new investigation. The Dumovichs hadn't killed themselves. Someone had killed them both. The news broke across Illinois like wildfire. Candlelight vigils turned into rallies demanding justice. Their families, who had been silent for weeks, finally spoke out. Rachel's mother tearfully said, "We knew they wouldn't do that to each other. They loved each other too much." Police continued to question Ethan Ward, but without conclusive evidence, they couldn't charge him. He denied everything. He moved away weeks later. To this day, he remains a person of interest, but never a suspect. As time passed, the Dumovich case grew colder. The partial fingerprint on the door never matched anyone in the database. The mysterious phone never resurfaced. And the gun, the one that started it all, still carried only 2 sets of prints, belonging to the victims themselves. But one final clue emerged months later, when an anonymous tip came into McHenry County Sheriff's Office. The caller claimed to have seen the Dumovich's car parked earlier that night, not on Route 14, but near an old gravel lot outside town. They said they saw a tall man in dark clothes standing by the driver's side window, talking to Rachel. When the witness slowed down, the man turned away. Moments later, the car drove off. The time matched perfectly with the missing hour in the couple's timeline. The witness couldn't identify the man. No cameras were nearby, but that one sighting confirmed what many feared. The Dumovichs weren't alone that night, and whoever that man was, he vanished into the dark without a trace. Today, the Dumovich case remains open but unsolved. The community of Harvard still remembers the flashing hazard lights, the still car, and the questions that will not die. The police maintain that new leads could reopen the investigation at any moment, but without new evidence, the case has become one of those tragic mysteries, the kind that keeps detectives awake long after midnight. Rachel and Brandon's final drive was supposed to be a simple trip home. Instead, it became a journey that ended in silence. 2 lives cut short, 2 stories intertwined forever, and one truth buried somewhere in the night. The Dumovich case isn't just a story about death. It's about how fragile love can be, how secrets can twist trust, and how even in small towns, darkness can sit quietly beside you in the passenger seat. If you followed this story to the end, don't stop here. Keep talking about it. Keep sharing it. Because somewhere out there, someone knows what really happened on Route 14. And until that person speaks, the Dumovich story remains unfinished. This is Joe Oscar Stories. Real stories, real people, real tragedy. Stay curious. Stay alert. And remember, the truth never hides forever.